you're asking about demography. Well, the city itself has developed. I mean, if you check the, I think 2010, that was the last census. The whole Greater Accra metropolitan area, the population serving around or a little over 4 million people. But since then, almost a decade now, the population has grown. There's so much movement, and the movement is more towards the outskirts. People are moving from the inner areas towards the outskirts. New people coming into the Greater Accra metropolitan area are finding, trying to look for space, accommodation, or look for land to develop into residential unit in the outskirts, not in the central area. There's no land there, and the people cannot afford the land, and also the rents are high, and therefore low-income people in particular, looking for cheap rent, are moving out into the surrounding peripheral municipalities. So we are getting movement from the central area. Central area is losing population into to the newly developing areas, as well as new migrants coming in and looking for cheaper accommodation. So it is also for people looking for cheaper accommodation who used to be in the central area.
So you have a situation where, so the transport network in Accra, it's like a funnel, okay? The core, the central business district is best served with good roads, and it lead outward. So it's like a funnel. Everything funnels into the inner city. Now, apart from that, you have a lot of, as I said, about 80% of the facilities are in AMA, the heart of town. And so you have a situation where people live in a distant location. So what that means is that it creates access, the need to connect. On the one hand, you have the facilities here where I come to work, or I come to shop, or I come to access government service at the ministries. And I stay at the other end, the suburbs, right? And so there's a need. And there are quite a lot of us staying here. And so if the road networks continue to remain as they are, and you're having a lot of people staying here, you're going to have congestion.
From the outskirts into the CBD, so we have the morning peak, which before it used to be after 6, but now it's more like even 5:45 if you live in Medina and then you don't live earlier than that time, then you'll be stuck in traffic. Then before, we used to also have the evening peak. The evening peak usually was after 5. But now that has also changed. It can be in the as early as 3, and traffic has started. So that is a key challenge, and you have most people either working in the ministries or the government sector, and you also have a chunk of the people working in the informal sector.
But then a large majority are, using the informal or organized transport system, what we call. I'm sure since you've been here, you've seen public transport, the trotros and the and the mini buses, and which so many of them clogging the roads, reducing the capacity of the roads, because of so many of them, and they are not high capacity buses. They are low capacity buses, and yet there are so many of them, but these are the ones that are able to penetrate all the newly outlying areas where people now live.
But almost did baby, I mean, senior 3 cedi 80 pesos.
3 cedis 80 pesos. That's the amount that she.
Is she sometimes take other?
Because if you offer taxi and I say private car and I say, offer be beer and part on throttle.
Throttle on the
She picks throttle always.
Why?
I didn't hear.
But you are not a bad boy.
So that's what will be good for her.
Yeah.
So because like within Accra,
Yeah.
look at people Accra. DM means now we use
Trotro. Yeah, trotro, yeah.
Why?
Because of the price. Because always we have a coins. But as for Umbadia, you spend like either 15 or 20 Ghana before they will take you to Accra. But as for trotro, yeah, you spend like 2 cities or 3 cities, there you have Accra.
I prefer a taxi or maybe an Uber, but I mostly do taxis. And my dad actually has a car, so I normally do his car. I don't like churcho at all. Like it's sometimes boring, and people with sweats will be sitting with you, touching with you, and there's heat in the churches, so I don't like churches. So I prefer maybe my dad's private car or maybe a taxi.
We don't have the money to buy the car. So best and we who have the money will join the trotro to go and drive the place we are going. So the trotro you can't get it free like your own car. So you manage our trotro. Though our trotro we don't have air condition. Africa, Ghana, we have so heat for everywhere. So we manage.
The peripheries are served with very unmotorable roads. Okay, so the road systems over there are very poor, dusty, generally, and so that appears to be the case. In terms of the network, it is limited. In terms of the units, the mobile units, the vehicles that ply on them, most of them are smaller. In terms of the carrying capacity, can take just a few number of people at a time. And so what happens is that you have demand outstripping supply. I mean, it's an issue of demand and supply. So you have a lot more people demanding to move fewer vehicles. And that makes room for the informal systems like the motor taxis, Okada, because the motors can actually go into the impassable or the unmotorable roads to pick people from their homes, from the hinterlands, bring them to a collection point where the trotters can go and pick them up. So even though, as I said, Okada is an illegality, because of the challenge with land use transport in Gama, we have created room for these informal transport systems to operate.
Can I take that? You see, Okada, I will not encourage it, but I'm not saying they should be banned now. What I will say is, let's improve our transportation system. You understand? If we have a bus lane that will move commuters faster, I don't see the benefit of riding Okada. These things emanate when there was so much congestion in the city. So it is not a preferential choice. You know, it's as a result of necessity that is I brought this. So let's improve our transport system.
Now, from 2000 up until now, the focus has been on what we call a PPP, private-public partnership. I think somebody the state has realized that, you know what, we can't do it alone. And we cannot allow the private, profit-oriented individuals to also lead the show. So can we work as partners? Can we, you know, bring your strength, we also bring our strength, and then we partner. So that has been, and it's not only in terms of transport, but in all other aspects of Ghanaian life.
So Accra Mobility has become a platform to try to connect to other cities in Africa who are also on the path of digitizing public transport routes and using it as a tool for transport planning and regulation. So the structure of the whole project is to identify the service providers, the services themselves, and the supporting infrastructure in terms of stop facilities or stop places. So basically that is, going forward, we hope to create like a guide. Some of it has been created already under phase 2 to show practical steps in how you could use smartphone applications to map public transport routes.
Alors, Jungle Bus est intervenu sur Accra Mobilité 3 après les 2 premières phases qui ont été réalisées par l'agence de transport Transitech et l'agence française de développement. Et en fait, ils sont allés cartographier les réseaux de trotro à Accra. Donc en fait, quand on est intervenu, il y avait déjà les données de transport qui existaient, mais elles n'étaient plus à jour. On a identifié des étudiants de l'école de géomatique auxquels on a dispensé une formation pour qu'ils deviennent collecteurs de données une fois sur le terrain. Donc leur travail, ça consistait à avoir un smartphone Android qu'on leur a prêté et collecter la trace GPS des trajets des trotros et ils relevaient les informations importantes comme le nom des arrêts, le prix du trajet, la fréquence moyenne de passage. Et ils ont fait ça sur les 320 lignes de trotro de la ville. Et ensuite, on a le retraitement des données, la mise en forme dans OpenStreetMap. C'est la communauté OpenStreetMap locale qui l'a fait. C'est des données qui sont dynamiquement créées, mises à jour par la communauté, utilisées par les startups locales, par les pouvoirs publics locaux, par les universitaires et par les contributeurs aussi, par des personnes en particulier. On continue à faire ces actions, à supporter la communauté OpenStreetMap qui fait ça. Et donc du coup, le soutien à la communauté, il est venu un peu avec ces outils. Il y a des personnes qui ont utilisé ces outils et du coup, on leur donne des conseils, on essaye de les aider. Et eux aussi nous donnent des conseils et nous aident. C'est vraiment un travail communautaire. La communauté OpenStreetMap a une manière très spécifique de fonctionner. Et nous, on est pleinement intégrés dans cette communauté.
I could remember back in high school when smartphones had started. That was late in the 2000s. But since there's been the act where it's pushing a lot more electronic communications, I would say somewhere between the year 2010 and now, there has been a continuous growth of cell phone penetration where people were just using it to make phone calls. But now we have data which people are using a lot more, even more than voice, because there's a lot of transactions that are going on these cell phone platforms. And the current government is also pushing a lot of electronic agenda where a lot of things can be done online other than the regular way of doing things by paper. And I would say confidently in Accra and major cities like Kumasi, Accra, and other places, internet connectivity is fairly, very much accessible. There's also a lot more efforts by governments, which has been continuous governments, to build fiber optics ring around the country to enable internet connectivity.
And now you're having these TNCs, the transport network companies. It began with Uber. Uber launched in Accra on July 11th, 2016. That's about roughly 2 years now. Apart from Uber, you also have Taxify. Taxify has been around for some time now. This was sometime January 22nd, 2017. Taxify also joined. These are multinational companies. Now, according to them, they provide the technological platform, such that if you have a smartphone, you can just, have you actually installed the Uber app on my phone as well? Just this morning when I was coming to the office, I wanted to come with Uber because my car had some challenge. So I actually have the Uber installed, on my phone. So it's so convenient, okay? According to the TNCs, the transport network companies, Uber, Taxify, they provide a platform like this. And then that enables potential riders like myself to book a ride, and then they will connect me to a potential driver. I can see information about the driver, details about the driver who's coming to pick me up before we embark on the journey.
Most of them are young, because most of the time the app is meant for people who have gone to school. So most of them use it, the young people, the people working in the offices. So they take the Uber more.
Okay. And is it every time easy for you to read the map? Is it precise every time?
Oh, it's always simple. But it's occasionally that you find it difficult to find the riders, but most of the time it's very, very easy for you to find the riders. Because the app has everything. You have to navigate and pick the person. I've done Uber for more than 2 years, so I have experience. I work with Taxify as well. But Taxify, they don't have customers like Uber. So I blend the Taxify with the Uber. Sometimes when the Uber requests are not coming, I on my Taxify app, and sometimes I get customers from Taxify. But most of the time I work on Uber.
As in from home, Uber, early in the morning, because coming to campus in the morning, it's not, like the traffic is not so much, so you can get here a little early, but if not, you probably have to use Trusky. I don't know if you know what the Trotro is. Yeah. You do? Yeah, so that's also faster.
Okay, I appreciate Uber because it's very affordable and then easier to operate with just your phone, and then you can just operate and then have a driver come to anywhere you are and then take you to your destination.
Okay. Sometimes it's difficult for the driver to find you?
Yeah, sometimes. Because of the technology, they have to look at the map and then, yes. So some of them, when they don't get you, they have to make a phone call to see where you are, and then you have to direct them. The Uber is mostly located in the city, like the central, but in the other parts, like the urban areas, it's not, you can't find. It's difficult to find, yeah. But you can get from the city to the other places, yeah.
Maybe it's in the other side, it's more difficult. From the suburb to the...
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So we move to Accra, and I saw we do Accra. Bien, we know we then we know.
Oh, me use Trotro na.
I didn't say.
Trotro no for economic reason. Ebia want to me confirm Uber so me need touch phone. I me be request Uber. And a Trotro no say simple and affordable. Say there you send me the one year in Accra. Pocket in here. Kotoko muskaso ni ho. Ete ofa Trotro be abaji 1 cedi. And I say anything. Ebi already low so now so and one thing yeah.
Uber? Not really, because accessing it is difficult for me. I think I've tried once and I was not able. I'm yet to know much about it. It's like I'm not able to access it. Yeah. No, it's not. I last time made somebody to do it for me, I think twice. And the fare I paid was very cheap. Just that because I can't access, I have no option.
What is interesting that I found quite recently is that Uber and Taxify, though they are international, they have succeeded in inspiring local startups. Indeed, here on the University of Ghana campus, there are even student-led initiatives, there's one called Group Drive. So students can actually arrange the same app-based, travel demand, demanding, booking a ride using your app. There are about 5 locally initiated TNCs, giving Uber and Taxify a run for their money. I mean, the point is that these global initiatives are also inspiring local initiatives. And so they are expanding the mobility options for commuters generally in Accra.
When we were doing our field work, when we started with the pilot project, we didn't do any much advertisement, but we had a lot of subscribers. That tells you how powerful our message was to the riders. It's just about offering something that others are not offering, then you are good to go. But if you bring the same app with the same system without any changes, then you are not doing anything. Why should people patronize you whilst there is Uber or Taxify? So we have features, about 10 features that Uber don't have. We need to change our way of thinking and then adapt to the developing trend. I think very soon a lot of people are going to stop using normal taxi because everybody wants to feel safe, everybody wants to feel good. You can be in your house and then request for a ride. So gradually, as people's minds are developing, people are getting education, very soon we are going to see that trend being increased.
No. I don't like Uber because Uber now, the cars are many in town, and sometimes some of them work, they connect them to work sometimes 12 hours, and then they will shut your line down. Yep.
Okay, so you never...
No, I've never drive Uber before. Okay. And some of my friends are doing that, but me, I'm not interested in Uber.
Do you know about Uber?
Uber, yeah.
Do you feel sometimes competition with Uber?
Through this, our loading, we don't have problem with Uber. Sometimes we also get dropping. So we work as usual.
For you, it doesn't change anything?
No.
For now, taxi drivers will be agitating, but when the need comes, because they have to switch, because most of the taxis are very old, no air conditioning, no security, no maintenance, and a lot of, when Uber came to Ghana, we were developing GeneRide before Uber set in, and they didn't even get it easy. They had that resistance from the taxi drivers, but they were able to establish. Yes, the same way carpooling service will come, and taxi drivers will resist it, but in a point in time when the people begin to appreciate that system, the switch will come automatically.
We recognized that the solution really lied not in expanding the road space, but in how the road space is expected to be managed. So we were looking at an infrastructure arrangement such that priority will be given to big bus operations. So the main arterial corridors into the city center, there are 4 main arterial corridors into the city center. And these were chosen as the corridors that will have priority arrangements for big bus operations, such that where there are conflicts and intersections, the conflicts will be resolved engineering-wise in favor of the big buses as against the use of the private car. The idea was to ensure that big bus operations will have shorter journey times and will be more productive. The corridor is about 22 kilometers in length and has about 1.3 to about 1.5 kilometers of dedicated lanes to support the big bus operations. And it has its own, the infrastructure has its own stops, branded stops, and the system was designed and called Ayalolo, the Ayalolo bus system. It's not exactly a BRT system. The buses that have been imported and utilized for the services are smart buses in terms of the fact that access to the services is by a smart card. The buses have vehicle location systems so that the schedules can be monitored from the control room. It also has onboard cameras so that security and incident management can also be effectively managed from the control room.
Fortunately, I was amongst few chosen people who went to South Africa to study their system of BRT. But here you can see the way our roads are being designed. In South Africa, they have a dedicated road for the BRT in the middle of the 2 lanes. So no obstacle, they don't waste any time at all. They start from the starting point to the ending point without any obstacle. Here, we don't have those facilities. Secondly, in South Africa, because the government is much more committed to the BRT system, they paid those operating in kilometers they have covered. So making the thing viable, making it successfully, because you come to work and you have to work for 8 hours. You have to start from this time, around this time you have to be here, around this time. You are working, serving the nation. It's government initiative and government must invest into it. Government is not prepared to invest into it. So that is a failure in Ghana. We went to South Africa. I told you I have privilege to travel to South Africa to practice their system on 2 occasions. They are happily working because the government is more committed into what the government is doing. These buses were brought by the government. Whoever is in power must investigate it and revive it. And you cannot do it alone. You have to do it with the private sector.
You are looking at new mobility and the effect of new mobility will have in the reform process that we are looking at. I am of the opinion, personal opinion, that it offers us advantages in terms of incorporating the informal sector into the reform process. It gives us a shortcut in the design of the feeders and how to ensure that the informal sector reinforces the productivity of the main corridors. So for example, you can take the Uber business model, apply it to the trotros, and as part of the regulatory regimes, ensure that the trotros that you're going to utilize have conforming vehicles and have conforming mode of operations that have been designed for them as part of a contract.
If we plan it well and the trotros realize the BRT is having a segregated lane and their work has been taken by BRT, they won't mind maybe stepping backwards to feed those on the main corridor, because they have to work. As we said, you can't take them out. They have to work and make sure they get their investment back. They also get money to feed their families.
I created it somewhere in 2011. So it actually started on my Facebook wall. And the main idea behind it was that anybody that has been on any of these minivans knows that it can be a very stressful experience. So usually to get through, to get to work, I would have to wake up super early, probably around 5:30 a.m. Get to the bus station or bus terminal around 5:30, 5:40 to struggle. So you either go to a bus stop to struggle with other commuters to get on a minivan, which usually moves about 18 people. And here you have about hundreds of people trying to get in. It becomes crazy. So usually after going through that, the conditions in these minivans or trotros, and then also coupled with the traffic and the frequent stops, I would get to the office with a headache. So I get to the office, I'm already tired, I have a headache. So usually for the first hour or 2 hours, there's nothing like productivity. I'll just have to cool down, try to get in a better shape to work. So on one such occasion, on my way to work, after waiting probably about an hour and 30 minutes, I got into one of these trotros. And then when the car moved, the driver decided to use a different route from the normal route. And as usual, he ended up in a worse traffic situation. So I was at the back seat, already exhausted, pissed and all that. So I realized it was putting me in a bad mood, which would not be very good for work. So on that day, instead of getting angry or pissed or something, I decided to go on Facebook and just share my experience with a touch of humor. So I went on Facebook and I put that this driver is very lucky that I'm at the back seat, and that if I was closer to him with all these muscles, and trust me, it's better now, I would have beaten it up. So when I put it on my wall, people got the humor aspect of it. And then it turns out because a lot of people were using these trotros, they identified with the experience. So I had a lot of people from Ghana, Nigeria, and then Ghanaians abroad also sharing their experiences. So that is how it started. So I think the most frequent will be the kind of funny experiences people would have. Like for example, maybe, most of these trotros have a bad maintenance culture. So sometimes you have the trotro is on its way, and then probably maybe at a point the door comes off, which is crazy. And then sometimes you have some of these funny inscriptions that you'd find at the back of the conductor, or what we call the mate. They have T-shirts that have funny inscriptions, or some funny inscriptions at the back of the trotros. We have a project on road safety, and we have another one on sanitation. So what we do on sanitation basically is we put members of our Facebook group who are interested, we put them into teams as volunteers based on where they live, and then each of these teams will adopt one bus terminal or trotro station. And then the idea would be to go there, we do some kind of education, and then we do some kind of cleanup exercises as well. We have a partnership with AMA Road Safety and some other road safety partners like the MTTD and some of these actors. And basically what happens is that people share their accident experiences on Trotro Diaries. If we're able to put together this information, it helps them to know, okay, where are people reporting these accidents from, who is involved, what could be the causes, and in that way they can also use that information to improve what happens on our road. We have 330,000 plus members or users, and majority of them obviously are based in Ghana, but we also have people in Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria, United States, United Kingdom. I think I've seen Qatar, Oman, and a couple of other cities that I can show you a bit later. But it's like we have our main community in Ghana, but then we also have other people across Africa, Liberia, I forgot to mention, Sierra Leone. And the main idea behind it now is to build it something like a TripAdvisor, but for transportation. So you know, whereas TripAdvisor focuses more on people sharing the places they visit or the hotels and all that, we want it to be a place where people can share their transportation experiences. So if somebody in Africa wanted to move into another city in Africa, or a tourist or somebody coming from outside to visit Africa, they can just go on there. They know what experiences to expect once they get here. And then as part of the things that we'll be doing in the mobile app too, want to make it possible for people to access the local transportation options via mobile phone. I think it will definitely be useful for development. There's a lot of things that, I mean, there are a lot of young people that have been able to offer business services through this smartphone. So it definitely is going to contribute to that. And our team, as Structured, together with other startups, I believe are also hoping that it definitely is going to bring an impact in the transportation space as well. I think we've already seen some apps in that space. For example, people are using Google Maps to help them move around. So I think it definitely is something that would help in that aspect. Yeah.